Hi, so this is the next video in the series. And what I want to do in this video is go through the various parts of the Behringer interface as you will see them on the laptop that is in the sound room. So what you should see here is the Behringer. And this is what it looks like when you boot it up in the sound room, and it connects up to the box that's in front. And there are some basic parts to this interface, and we can walk through them. The first thing I want to talk about is those bus lines, Sanctuary and vMix, and they show over here. So if I want to look at what's going on in the Sanctuary in terms of volume, I click this button right here. You can see all the sliders are set, and they're all kind of framed in red, and the Sanctuary name is in red, and the output volume level is in red. And that's how we know that we're on the Sanctuary. So this is the sound levels that'll actually be going out to the Sanctuary. The next bus has been labeled vMix. And here it is, and it's in green, so we can tell the difference between the Sanctuary and vMix. And as you'll notice, some of these sound levels are different. These sliders over here popped up and down. This slider here went up and down. And that characterizes really what we're doing. We're setting the sound levels differently for the Sanctuary than we are for the vMix. The various inputs are across here. And you can see we're over to 16, and then there's an auxiliary, and then there are some special effects such as reverb, delay, echo, and things of that nature, and they show up over here. The nice thing about having 16 slots is we can always jack something into the same slot every time, which means that we can do some basic settings for that channel and then not come back and have to reset everything every week. So I've labeled these inputs, and then I will tape this to the Behringer down front, and we should always jack the same thing into the Behringer, into the same place. It's just going to make our lives easier. Along the left here, you can see the piano, and then congregational left and congregational right. And those are the shotgun mics that are up on the brick wall in the front. They usually pick up the congregation and the organ. They go into the Behringer now. Then we also have the lectern. That's where people do the liturgy, and that's where the soloist stands. And you sort of figured out that this little cluster right here is what we use when we're doing hymn singing. Then we come in with some of the effects that a praise band might use. Here's where we would jack in an electric guitar. If we have the piano vocalist and they're singing from a microphone sitting at the piano, it would come right here. We have a couple solo slots that we can use right here. This is where we jacked in the violin. So this whole range right here could be used for praise band instruments. Then we have two condenser mic slots right here in pink. If the choir sings, it would be nice to put condenser mics right down in front so we can pick up the sound well. If we pick it up from the shotgun mics, it kind of sounds like you're in a barrel or in a hall. But if you can get a condenser mic up closer to them, they'll actually sound good on the vMix. So that's what those slots are reserved for. And then the last slot is for the pulpit mic. Sometimes a pastor will say, I don't want to use a headset. I'd like to use the pulpit mic, the one on the little black stand. And that's permanently wired in. If you go and look, the wire's still there. And all we have to do is plug in the pulpit, and we've got our basic sound setting. So we will do ourselves a great favor if we stick to this configuration right here, because that way we're not having to change all the settings all the time. Up here we have an array of buttons, and I want to cover 2 buttons today. Here is the channel button. The channel button is important because that's where you set your gain, and that's where you set your gain right here. So at the beginning of every service, when we're doing our sound checks, that's what we're doing. The soloist will go up. They do not have the same type of voice or the same strength of voice. And so as you do your sound checks, this is where you're going to be moving the gain up or down. As you're setting the gain, you should have your slider at 0. What the Behringer expects is that we set the gain using this setting right here, and then the slider is a variation up or down from the gain that we've set. So this is your basic sound level setting, and this is kind of a variation on it. The next button is the meter button. When we're running and live in the congregation, these analog inputs will be merrily bumping up and down. And this will allow you to equalize some of the sound going out. For example, sometimes the soloist is getting swallowed up by the organ, or vice versa. It's all soloist and the congregation sounds like they're miles away. You can see that effect on these analog inputs, and you can make your adjustments here down on the sliders, or if it's big enough, you may have to go in and adjust the gain. And then lastly, of course, we have the mixer position, and that gives us the overall picture of the board.